Greetings, translators. Welcome to this video tutorial on computer-assisted translation tools. Today, we're going to learn how to use MemoQ, one of the most popular CAT tools used by professional translators around the world. MemoQ is developed by the Hungarian company Kilgray, founded in 2004. It is best known for its user-friendly interface and terminology management system. In this tutorial, we will walk through the essential steps to get you started with MemoQ, from creating a new project, importing translation memory and term base, to translating a document using these resources. So, without further ado, let's get started. Let's now look at the scenario we'll be working with today. In the western North Pacific region, typhoon names are reused in cycles, using a list of 140 names submitted by 14 different countries and regions. However, if a typhoon causes serious damage or casualties, its name will be removed from the list out of respect for the victims and to avoid future confusion. When that happens, the Typhoon Committee also introduces a new name to replace the one that was retired. Every year, the Hong Kong Observatory has to publish an official press release about typhoon names. In the press release, they announce which typhoon names have been retired, what the reasons were, and which new names have been added to the list. You are the translator working for HKO. You have to translate the English press release into Chinese. Because this content follows a highly structured and repetitive format, year after year, it's a perfect candidate for a CAT tool workflow. Now, let's move on and start preparing our translation project in MemoQ. Sometimes, especially when you're working with translation agencies or experienced clients, you're lucky enough to receive a complete project package. This package usually includes everything you need: the source document, translation memory, term base, and sometimes even style guides. In MemoQ, you can simply go to the home screen and choose Translate a Package, which allows you to import all the prepared materials in one go. But in many real-life scenarios, especially when working freelance or in-house for smaller organizations, that's not the case. Let's imagine this is one of those situations. All you've got for this project are an Excel file that contains the bilingual list of new typhoon names, a Word document of last year's press release, and the source text for this year's announcement, also in Word format. So, no ready-made translation memory, no term base, no project file. But that's okay. With MemoQ, we can build everything we need from scratch. We'll extract useful terms, align the past translation to build a TM, and set up our project step by step. Let's now begin setting up our translation project in MemoQ. First, open MemoQ. On the home page, you'll see a dashboard with several options. From the menu, choose Create a new project without a template. This option gives you full control over your project setup. You'll then be prompted to fill in some basic details. Just give your project a name and select the source and target languages. One important thing to remember is to choose the correct language variants. For example, make sure to specify whether you're working with traditional Chinese, Hong Kong, or traditional Chinese, Taiwan. Keeping this selection consistent is important, as it affects how MemoQ handles translation memory. If you don't have details like client or domain, you can simply leave those fields blank. Once that's done, click Next to move forward with your project setup. After entering the basic details for your project, click on the Import button and choose the file you want to translate. MemoQ supports a wide range of file types, including Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, HTML files, and many others. In our case, we'll be importing the Word document that contains this year's press release English draft. Once your file is added, the wizard will ask you to upload any existing translation memories or term bases. If you already have a relevant translation memory or term base file, you can upload it here. However, in our current scenario, we're starting from scratch. We don't have any translation memory or term base yet. So we'll leave these fields empty for now. Just click Finish, and MemoQ will create your project environment. Now that we've clicked Finish, we're taken to the project homepage. Here, you can see the to-be-translated document we just imported. But before we jump into the translation itself, we need to build up our translation resources. To begin, look at the menu on the left and click on the LibDocs tab. If you've used other CAT tools like Trados, you might be familiar with a feature that lets you align past source and target files and save them directly as a translation memory. However, MemoQ works a little differently. In MemoQ, you cannot manually align segments directly into a translation memory. Instead, when you're working with full reference documents, like last year's press release and its translation, you use LibDocs. LibDocs is MemoQ's way of storing and using aligned documents. It allows you to add bilingual or monolingual files, align them, and then draw on that entire document content during translation. It's especially useful when you're starting a project from scratch and don't yet have a translation memory. Let's take a look at how the alignment process works in LibDocs. The first step is to create a new corpus. This is where MemoQ will store the aligned documents we're about to add. To do this, click on Create/Use New. A small window will appear prompting you to name your new corpus. Give it a simple name and leave the optional fields, such as client or subject, blank and click OK. You'll now see that a new, empty entry has been created in the LibDocs workspace, which is still empty. Now that we've created the new corpus, we're ready to align the raw Word files from last year's press release. To begin, look at the top ribbon under the LibAlign section and click Add Alignment Pairs. This opens the Add Multiple Files for Alignment wizard. In the center of the window, you'll see two buttons, one for adding source documents and another for adding target documents. Since this is your first alignment in this corpus, the file list will still be blank at this point. Once both files are selected and listed, press OK. MemoQ will now load the files as a pair and display them in the lower part of the LibDocs homepage. This pair has been added to the corpus, but it hasn't been aligned yet. To begin aligning, simply double-click on the file pair. Once you open the file pair in the alignment editor, you'll see the source text on the left and the target text on the right. Green lines connect the two sides. These are MemoQ's automatic alignment suggestions. As you'll quickly notice, the automatic alignment is rarely perfect. This is why we need to review and clean up the alignment manually. For example, in the target text, segments 3 and 4 are actually one complete sentence in Chinese. To fix this, you can merge the two segments in the target column. Hold down the Shift key, click on both segments 3 and 4 to select them, then right-click and choose Join. You can also use the shortcut Ctrl+J to do it faster. After merging segments 3 and 4 in the previous step, you might notice that the new combined segment still doesn't fully align with the corresponding source text. In this case, the source segment is longer than what the target now covers. When you come across a segment that seems too long or covers more than it should, you can use the split function to divide it into smaller parts. To do so, simply place your cursor at the point where you want to divide the text, usually before a punctuation mark or natural break in the sentence. Then right-click and choose Split, or use the shortcut Ctrl+T. Once you're satisfied with how a particular pair is aligned, it's time to confirm it manually. To do this, highlight both the source and target segments, then go to the top left corner of the alignment editor and click Create Synchro Link. When you do this, MemoQ draws a blue line between the segments. This blue line indicates that these segments are manually linked, meaning you've reviewed and approved the match. These confirmed links take priority over automatic ones and are treated as reliable matches when MemoQ uses this corpus to suggest translations later on. You can continue this process for the rest of the document, align each segment as needed, then create a synchro link once the alignment looks good. Once you've finished, you can also confirm the ones that MemoQ aligned correctly on its own. To do this, simply click Confirm All Auto Links at the top of the alignment editor. This will turn the remaining green lines, the automatic ones, into blue lines, marking them as confirmed. At this point, there's no need to click any Save or Import buttons. MemoQ saves your changes automatically as you go. So when you're finished, you can simply close the alignment editor. You'll then be taken back to the LiveDocs homepage, where you'll now see that your corpus contains a certain number of entries. These entries represent the aligned sentence pairs you've just confirmed, and they're now stored in the LiveDocs corpus, ready to be used as reference during translation. Now we move on to the second part of our pre-translation preparation, setting up a term base. Back to our scenario, we need to create a term base for a newly updated list of typhoon names. We only have received the list in Excel format, but MemoQ allows us to import that directly into the term base, so we don't have to enter each term manually. However, make sure that the file is formatted clearly, with one column for the source terms and another for the target translations. This will be very helpful. To do so, go to the Project Home menu and select the Term Bases tab from the navigation panel on the left. At the top left corner, click Create/Use New. This opens the Term Base Creation window. Give your term base a name, and then select both your source and target languages by checking the appropriate boxes. Once you've created your term base, MemoQ will take you back to the project homepage, where you'll now see your newly created term base listed. To import your list of terms, simply click on the term base entry in the list to highlight it. Then, go to the top ribbon and click Import Terminology. This will open a file selection window where you can browse and choose the Excel file that contains your terminology. Once selected, MemoQ will guide you through the import process and help you map the correct columns to the appropriate languages. After selecting your Excel file, MemoQ will begin reading the content and extracting the text from each column. However, while it can detect the column headers and values, it might not automatically recognize which column corresponds to which language, or whether a column should even be treated as a term. In this Fields window, MemoQ will list all the column headers from your Excel file. For each relevant column, usually one for the source language and one for the target, make sure to check the box labeled Import as Term. Next, look to the right of each column. You'll see a drop-down menu where you can assign the correct language to that column. Repeat this for both source and target columns. Click OK, and you'll complete the import. At this point, your terms should have been successfully imported into the term base. However, it's always a good idea to do a quick check to make sure everything looks right. To do this, go back to the project homepage, select your term base from the list, and then click Edit on the top ribbon. This will open a spreadsheet-like view of your term base, a chart showing all the imported entries. Here, you can manually review and edit the terms. For example, if you notice any missing rows, unrecognized characters or fonts, or if you simply want to update a translation, you can make those changes directly in this view. With both LiveDocs and terminology resources working in the background, we're all set to move into the translation phase. Navigate to the Translations section on the project homepage and double-click the file you want to work on. MemoQ is designed with a simple user interface. When you click into a target segment, MemoQ will automatically check for any matches from your translation memory or LiveDocs. If it finds anything similar, those results will appear in the Translation Results pane on the right side of the screen. One of MemoQ's most helpful features is how it handles fuzzy matches, entries that aren't identical but have a high degree of similarity. Unlike some CAT tools that only show the match, MemoQ can also suggest edits based on what's different. For instance, if your source sentence says, "New names for tropical cyclones in 2025 introduced," and it finds a previous translation for the 2024 version, MemoQ will propose reusing that translation but update the year from 2024 to 2025 for you. However, you will still have to manually adapt the suggestion. If you want to adapt the suggestion, simply double-click the result in the Translation Results pane. This will insert it into your target segment, where you can make any final edits before confirming. Now let's take a look at how MemoQ helps you maintain terminology consistency using the term bases we imported earlier. Consider this segment. The sentence structure may be similar to something previously translated, but the similarity rate is low because the proper names like typhoon names have changed, or there are less names listed this time. Even when the translation memory can't offer a solid match, MemoQ still checks your term base. If it finds any recognized terms, they'll show up in the Translation Results pane and highlighted within the segment. To insert these terms into your translation, you can simply double-click the detected match in the Translation Results pane. MemoQ will automatically place it in the target segment where your cursor is. With the help of your LiveDocs and term bases, you'll likely find that your translation progresses smoothly. Very soon, you'll be ready to wrap it up. Once you've finished translating all the segments, it's time to export your translation. To do this, go back to the project home, select the file from the translations list, and click Export from the top ribbon. MemoQ will automatically follow the original format of the file you imported. It intelligently fills in the translated content in the correct locations, so charts stay charts, tables remain intact, and all formatting is preserved. And that concludes our walkthrough of the translation workflow in MemoQ. We hope this session has given you a clear, hands-on understanding of how MemoQ can streamline and support your translation work. Thank you for your attention and happy translating.